So the video I'm about to do has been done before by one of my very first YouTube buddies, Some Dumb American. This name fits me a lot better, so it seems only appropriate that I'd steal her idea.
I suggest at the start that you steal.
He's advocating stealing.
But people seem to think I was advocating stealing in general. No.
He's advocating stealing, and I can do it now. Any dang ways, it's called writing diversity.
Hey guys, welcome to the second video in my series on writing diversely.
Or that, whatever, same thing. And I guess since SDA's video was titled the same thing and she's a bigger YouTuber, it's easier to find her video than the original. So this girl found it and is now trying to get SDA's video taken down. Aw, my fair use record is broken. SDA wasn't really all that mean, and she made a point not to link the original video and to discourage people from writing mean comments, which I guess make people feel unsafe? Wow, it's funny how the word diversity is so often linked with actively trying to shut people down. Now, with the latest kerfuffle about YouTube advertisers pulling away as old media gets more desperate and fucking rabid, the heightened chance of being demonetized might be seeing some YouTubers back down from things like this. But when you're as small and insignificant as I am and AdSense money isn't your primary motivation or even a realistic expectation, I'd say the best course of action is to recklessly double the fuck down. So let's do this. Now obviously I don't condone bullying any more than SDA does, but if I'm being completely honest, in this case I don't give a fuck what you do.
Today I hope to talk to you about some things you should keep in mind when writing characters of a different race than yourself.
And I hope to respond to it. And I also hope that our respective hopes manifest themselves in a real way.
Here's the simplest tip. It's kind of weird to describe brown characters' skin colors with terms like coffee or caramel and so on.
Yeah, it's really offensive to use descriptors of food products that are universally considered pleasant. Coffee has its own Wikipedia page dedicated to the color of coffee, and caramel color is the, quote, oldest and most widely used food colorings. But it's somehow weird that we use these popular colors to pinpoint the complexion of characters the reader can't see. You've just thrown out one of the most basic writing techniques because you think it's kind of weird.
That would be like if I described pale skin as like butter or coffee creamer or milk that had been left out too long and slightly discolored. Okay, wow, that was a really gross and creepy example, but I think you get my point.
Gross and creepy? It could be easily construed as racist. You listed two pleasing food products as an example for brown people, and for fair-skinned people, you went immediately to rotten milk. Wow, girl. Wow.
Wow.
You know, in order to be an effective writer, you have to read a lot. I have to wonder just how good a writer you can be if you've never come across things like milky skin or vanilla complexion in your reading career. Plus, if my character's gonna look sickly or greasy, why not compare it to butter or bad milk? What if I'm writing in the first-person narrative and my narrator has derogatory feelings towards this character? Anyway, I guess it's good to know that this restrictive request to ironically limit creative diversity also applies to white people.
The only time any character should describe another with food terms is if they are a cannibal.
God, I'd really love to read your writing because there's no fucking way it isn't bland and lifeless.
Next, don't include people of color as props for your main character. It's really obvious and a bit unnerving if the only diverse characters in your story are your white main character's best friends in an otherwise large and expansive world.
There's plenty of extreme examples of this that would have you and I agreeing here, but consider this. Individual human beings do not live in a large and expansive world. They live in little pockets of a large and expansive world. You live in your house, and your world only expands to where you go to school, where you work, where you go for fun, etc. You don't even fully live in your own city. No one character in the large and expansive world of Game of Thrones has the full scope of the large and expansive world they live in because they don't really live in the whole thing. Shit, the Marvel Universe is about as large and expansive as it gets, but it's funny just how much of that universe is fucking New York. On top of that, I'd say every secondary character is a prop for the main character, and if you like being cynical like I do, every person who isn't you, in a sense, is sort of a prop for you. We're learning today. We're learning about life. The harsh realities of life.
It's even more frustrating if said diverse character dies to further your main character's story, even if they are conveniently replaced with another brown friend.
I can't think of a real-world example of this, but I'd actually like to know if anybody in the comments can come up with one, because to be honest, I'd sort of agree. If you have a black character whose only purpose is to die, and then you have a black character replace that black character, it's pretty transparent. I have a feeling that anything you guys could come up with would make sense within the context of the story, as I doubt most writers are as obsessed with race as this girl apparently is.
That doesn't mean diverse characters can't die, but it's important to consider the implication of minorities dying for a white character's growth, even and especially if your story claims not to have the same oppressions as our real world.
Oh, I don't think they're implying so much as you're inferring. And in a sense, this does kind of mean your quote-unquote diverse character can't die. You're either setting up a standard that makes a diverse character unimportant since affecting the growth of the main character is off limits, and there's an infinite number of ways to infer racism in the death of a diverse character. So any writer who takes you seriously, which I'd really strongly advise against, is kind of fucked here. Now obviously there's supposed to be more depth to a character than their race or heritage, but again, I'd really like to see the kind of shit you're cranking out as a writer effective enough to dish out tips for new writers. Oh, and this world we've created where the oppressions are not comparable to real-world oppressions has anything to do with the death of an individual character? How?
It's really important to be aware of racist implications, even if you're writing a science fiction or fantasy novel with characters with blue, green, or gray skin. Just because the colors don't match doesn't mean the same issues fade away.
Well, it does if I fucking write it that way. But here's a fun diversion, check this out.
We haven't had a chance to talk alone. You comfortable in here?
I took it. It feels strange to stay with the others. They are your aliens.
Your dialogue options here are to get a little offended or to get really fucking offended. I guess that makes sense for a company who wholeheartedly tolerates this kind of behavior from its designers. Oh man, Veer, your game is garbage. But whatever, if you want to use your alien characters as some hyper thinly veiled social commentary, that's about as valid a choice as not doing that and creating something good instead.
A character of color is still a character. They deserve to be treated and developed as well as any other character you'd write about.
My characters are my characters, and they can be treated however the fuck I want to treat them, because they're mine. They don't exist outside of me. I made them. I can do whatever I want to them. Fuck you.
If you're writing about a brutal world or an oppressed society, someplace on the brink of war, it's fine if everyone is treated terribly. You're not going to get accused of racism if your POC are treated just as bad as everyone else.
Won't you, though? How sure about that are you? You seem pretty sure about that.
I really don't want to tell anyone what to write or say that you can't write the story of your heart.
It feels like there's a but coming because that's exactly what you're doing.
But it's important to consider if the story you are trying to tell is built around an experience that isn't yours to tell.
Here's a problem. Why does my story have to be the story of my heart? And why does the experience I write about have to be my own? You don't want to tell people what to write, but here you are suggesting that they shouldn't write anything outside of the story of their heart or a story that isn't theirs to tell? Every story I choose to tell is mine to tell. If I'm writing from a historical standpoint, I'd want to make a painful effort to be as accurate as possible. But why should my race limit me from creating good fiction outside of my own personal experience? It shouldn't, girl. Rethink your position, please.
Stories involving slavery, segregation, internment camps, they're very hard to get right. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty for things your ancestors did, but understand the consequences of these things are not over.
These things are only hard to get right if you don't know the history. Just about every white professor of American history has a whole lot more to say about slavery and segregation than you do. You've experienced none of it, and I'm positive you haven't learned enough about it to be considered an expert. Your race has literally nothing to do with your understanding of those moments in history, and I dare to say you know fuck all about the consequences of it regardless of how over they are. Okay, I'll police myself a little bit here. Maybe not literally nothing. You might have a leg up in terms of interests or family history. You might have a bit of an advantage over someone who doesn't have that initial spark to learn more about these things. But if someone without that initial spark still ends up seeking out that knowledge, they can easily bridge that gap their experience or family history hasn't afforded them. I've said this before, but empathy is a powerful thing, and it's, I think, the best tool we have for writing characters who are not us and stories that are not our own personal stories. People shouldn't be afraid about writing about things they care about just because they haven't experienced them or they don't have a direct link to them. If they want to come out with something good, they'll just have to make a conscious effort to be as historically accurate as the context of their narrative warrants. But that's about it. You don't have to be so fucking uptight about the race of your characters.
Every day I face my computer with deep anxiety that I'm not educated enough to write as well as my peers, and I'm so neurotic about money that I feel guilty for buying myself anything. I'm obsessive about learning about writing and investing in my career because I'm terrified that I don't have enough to make it work. These worries are likely familiar to most writers, but for me they are deeply entrenched in ways I've been let down before.
Being insecure and highly critical of the quality of your work is an important thing, and you should hold on to that feeling. You should hold on to that feeling that everything you write is garbage. It's a good thing, trust me. What I'd be more concerned about is your emphasis on being a writer for monetary gain as a career. And since you're constructing such restrictive guidelines that are bound to suck the soul out of anything you put together, seemingly as an effort to make everything non-controversial and appealing to a very general audience, I'm afraid you're missing the mark on what it takes to be a good artist. Suffer, piss people off, and go a little fucking nuts. But that just might be my take on it. You know, I don't know. Fuck me if I'm wrong, but go a little fucking crazy. Say things you're not supposed to say. It's awesome.
You don't have to pretend that racist ideas don't exist. You just need to address them in text.
Nope. It's a bad move to tell writers what they need to write. Stop it.